Scenes from western Syria now as its naval fleet was completely destroyed by Israeli strikes. That's according to Israel, just part of Israel's punishing response following the collapse of brutal Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime. Israel says that the airstrikes, coupled with the decision to move past a buffer zone into Syria, are all part of Israel's effort to wipe out the threats to Israel from Syria. CNN's Jumana Karaja is in a Damascus suburb where Syrians are taking in a moment of massive change, hoping it is for the best. She spoke to one Syrian who lost nearly everything during Assad's brutal reign.
What's left of Dereya tells of the horrors that unfolded here. Every corner scarred by a ruthless regime's fight for survival. This Damascus suburb rose up peacefully, demanding freedom. More than a decade on, a shattered Dereya and its people are finally free. This was for our children, Firas tells me. It's so they don't have to live under the tyrant's rule. Her story of loss and pain so unfathomable for us, yet so common in this place, that for years endured some of the most brutal tactics of the Assad regime, besieged, starved, and bombed into surrender.
Firas says they came out asking for freedom, and they were met with bullets and tanks. She says, "We're not terrorists," and they did this. And imagine, she says, there were women and children living in these homes.
So many men like her husband Mazen detained and disappeared. 2 years later, a released prisoner told her he saw him in jail. They beat him so much his wounded leg was infected. He was in so much pain, she says. There was no medical care in prison, and because of all he was going through, he lost his mind. The prisoner last saw him taken away crying and screaming hysterically. She went from one detention center to the next searching for him until they broke the news to her in the most cruel of ways. They handed her his belongings and told her to register his death. There are no words to describe how I was feeling when I left, she says. I was holding on to the hope he would be released and our family would be reunited. They didn't even give me his body. This is the last photo she has of Mazen and his youngest boy. Ghaith doesn't remember his dad. Noor was 6 and so attached to his father. Every day he would wait by the door for him to come back. When I would hear someone calling Baba, Dad, it was torment for me, Firas says. What did these children do to be deprived of their father? She has to be strong for her boys, she says. She is all they have. Her father also disappeared into the black holes of Assad's jails. Like her husband, their only crime, she says, was being from Dereya.
She says, I'm just one of thousands and thousands of stories, and that's just in Dereya. And just imagine how many more there are across Syria.
With the end of this dark chapter in their history, a new life, a new Syria emerges from the rubble of their broken lives.
You know, Jake, in 13 years, 300,000 Syrians were killed, 130,000 at least forcibly disappeared, millions forced out of their homes. And you speak to Syrians like Firas there, and she says that sacrifice, all that they lost, it's worth it if it means that a new generation of Syrians is going to inherit a new Syria, a free Syria. And they say now it is up to these new rulers, these rebel groups and opposition groups to ensure that that actually happens, Jake.
Yeah, let's hope it is a new and free Syria. Jumana Karaja in Damascus, thank you so much. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut is here. He's on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, always good to see you. So over the last 2 days, Israel says it launched nearly 500 airstrikes throughout Syria. Turkey is destroying several trucks loaded with weapons from Assad's regime in northeastern Syria. The U.S. struck 75 ISIS targets there over the weekend. What are your biggest concerns as you watch this all play out?
Well, there's a long list of concerns, but the United States and Israel share some major concerns that as chaos reigns inside Syria, some very dangerous people could get their hands on some very dangerous weapons, including chemical weapons. And so it is in our interest to either destroy or guarantee the security of those weapons of mass destruction before they either get into the hands of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or perhaps this new coalition government about whom the jury is very much still out. This new group of rebels in charge of the capital obviously has long-standing ties to Al-Qaeda and to other extremist groups. We are ready to take them at their word that they have reformed and they are ready to build an inclusive government that protects everyone in Syria, but you have to prepare for the worst, and that's in part what these strikes are designed to do.
So in a statement this weekend, you said, quote, "I urge all parties to support an inclusive political process that protects the rights of all Syrian communities and works towards a free, secure, democratic future." I don't think I need to tell you that there aren't exactly a whole bunch of democratic Arab states. How is this going to work, and what role should the United States play in this process, if any?
Yeah, listen, I think we need to understand that there is no history of democracy inside Syria, and we certainly have made mistakes in the past in which we have tried to push onto countries with no history of democracy a Western-style form of self-governance. So I don't think there's any shame in taking some time to make sure that the voices of the Syrian people are heard. I think it's important, though, for the United States to have a voice here. And as you know, Jake, this group has a terrorist designation. I worry that we're going to let that terrorist designation stop the United States from being, at the very least, in some conversation with a group that's going to have a lot to say about U.S. interests in the region. So we've got leverage. Obviously, we have troops there. We have long supported the Kurdish forces in northeast Syria, but we should probably get into some kind of conversation pretty soon with this group. It doesn't necessarily need we need to lift the terrorist designation, but the Turks are talking to them, the Arabs are talking to them, the Russians are talking to them, the Europeans may soon be talking to them. I'm not sure that the United States should stand on the sidelines.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because the group you're talking about, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, called HTS, the U.S. right now, we're told the Biden administration is not considering changing the terrorist designation. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby says they're saying all the right things, but the guy used to be, the head of it used to be a leader of Al-Qaeda. Actions need to meet words. When you say that the U.S. needs to be part of the conversation, what does that look like? What does that mean? And how much do you think that this group does have the best interests of the Syrian people writ large at heart?
Oh, I don't think we know the answer to that question. That's purely speculative. Obviously, it's in their interest to say things today that keep their potential future adversaries and enemies at bay. So the United States obviously has forces inside Syria that are primarily designed at fighting ISIS, and we need to keep those forces at the ready should even more chaos break out. All I'm saying is that if everybody else is talking to this group, the United States should be at that table. I don't think that needs to include a full lifting of the terrorist designation. That terrorist designation comes with lots of other penalties on individuals who are a member of the organization. But for far too long, the United States has often refused to talk to our adversaries, and that has ended up with deals being cut without the United States that don't accrue to our national security interest.
Just for 1 second, I'd like to take a step back and look at what happened on October 7th, 2023. Since Hamas attacked Israel, the leadership of Hamas has been wiped out. The leadership of Hezbollah has wiped out. Bashar al-Assad's government has fallen. I'm wondering if the October 7th attack is one of the most consequential miscalculations by the Iranians that you can even imagine.
Well, and obviously you're seeing, Hezbollah deeply weakened inside Lebanon as well. Listen, this is an opportunity to strike a real death blow to Iranian interests in the region. And so this is a critical period in which it's important for the non-Hezbollah aligned interest inside Lebanon to set aside their difference and create a true governing structure. It's important for the Israelis, along with their partners in the region, to find a Palestinian-led government that marginalizes Hamas forever inside Gaza. And it's important for us to be at the table to make sure that we have a Syrian-led process that leads to a government aligned with the interests of the Syrian people, not outside interests like Iran. So yes, this moment presents an opportunity to make political decisions standing on top of the military decision-making that perhaps fundamentally weakens Iran in the region for decades to come.